the story of Kevin the Lamb. We have been following Kevin's journey throughout this Advent season and hearing how he is discovering something more. In week 1, Kevin escaped his green pasture from the farm and ended up in the big city of Wilmington. In week 2, Kevin was hungry and was looking for safe grass to eat and ended up here at St. Paul's. In week 3, Kevin got to learn about St. Paul's Lutheran Church, our ministries, and meet a lot of people. Let's hear chapter 4 of Kevin's story and see if he discovers what more is. The nice lady told Kevin that the pastor would be at the barn later in the afternoon. Kevin was fine with that. During his trip around the city, he had seen things he had wanted to explore. Kevin decided to set off on another adventure. He promised he would be back before dark. As Kevin was walking on the street, he looked in the windows of houses and saw trees inside of them. That was odd. He did not know trees grew inside. Even odder were the twinkling lights on them and the pretty decorations hanging on the branches. Kevin also heard musical stories about the strangest things coming from the cars, homes, and stores around him. There were lots of songs about a man in a red suit that travels the world delivering presents. Kevin had never heard of this person. Of course, he had also never heard of a singing, dancing snowman. There was a song about a special kind of deer with a red nose that could fly. Kevin had met some deer when he lived in the pasture. He had never met a deer with a shiny red nose that could also fly. There seemed to be a great number of songs about a baby being born. For reasons he didn't understand, this baby born at a stable where animals lived. This made no sense to him. Confusing him more were the songs about people traveling great distances to visit the baby. 2 songs captured Kevin's attention the most. One was about 3 men following a star to find the baby, and the other song was about shepherds watching their flock. Kevin used to live with a flock and had followed a star to the city. These 2 songs were special to him, but he wasn't sure why. Soon it was time to head back to the big barn with the pretty windows and meet the person that the nice lady called pastor. On his way back, Kevin thought about what he had heard and seen. Kevin concluded that this baby that everyone was singing about sounded pretty important. He would have to add him to the list of things he needed to find out more about. The nice lady and the pastor were waiting by the big doors at the front of the barn. The pastor invited Kevin into what he called the church. Once inside, Kevin saw rows of long wooden seats facing a wall of gold-colored pipes. Apparently, trees grew in churches too. There was a big one with pretty decorations at the front of the church. There was even a big star hanging in front of the church. The pastor explained during Advent, the church prepared for the birth of baby Jesus. The pastor went on to explain how God, the creator of everything, had sent his only son Jesus to be a light in this world. Jesus had humble beginnings, being born at a stable. In spite of this, many heard of God's gift to the world and came to visit Jesus at the stable. They all knew how much more he meant to the world. The pastor explained that Jesus' visitors included shepherds from fields outside of the city and kings who had traveled thousands of miles following a star. They did all this to find Jesus and bring him gifts of love. This at least explains some of the songs, but not the red-nosed flying deer thing. That still had him a little confused. Kevin understood Jesus was important. He was still not clear exactly why. Seeing Kevin's confusion, the pastor walked him over to one of the long wooden benches. They sat looking at the decorations in the front of the church. The pastor explained that Jesus was a gift from God that showed us all how much he loved us. All God asked in return was for us to pass the story and his love along. The pastor explained that there are many ways to pass this gift along. We can do this simply by caring a little more for others, helping a little more when and where we can. Give a little more to those who have less. God just wants us to do what we can, when we can, and where we can. It doesn't have to be a huge thing to be more. All of us working together adds up to the more. The more that we do is how we remind the world of Jesus and of God's love. Kevin finally understood both Jesus and the more. More was not any one thing. It was simply Kevin doing what Kevin could do. Kevin began to wonder where he would start. The nice lady and the pastor provided him with the perfect answer. They invited him to stay at St. Paul's, where he could work with them as they brought God's love to the world. Kevin was thrilled and immediately said, "Bah," which is sheep for yes. Thank you for following Kevin's journey this Advent season. Despite being full of obstacles, Kevin did not stop his search for something more. Eventually, he found out the more he was looking for was the love of God. Like Kevin, sometimes all we need is someone to show us what more is along the way. While we all will experience the journey to something more differently, the meaning is clear. God's love, through the birth of Jesus Christ, is the greatest gift we receive. This gift extends full joy and hope into our hearts, so much that we get to share it with others. May God's light shine brightly within your hearts and give you peace. Merry Christmas from everyone at St. Paul's. Thank you for following Kevin the Lamb's journey this Advent season. I hope that you have experienced something more, and I hope that you experience the wonderful grace found in the birth of baby Jesus.